We are here for a community meeting, hopefully because each of you received one of these notices in the mail. What this means is that Orange County has received a development application for the piece of property identified here in the notice. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a second. And as the project has gone through the review, your district commissioner has asked that we bring this out to the community, surrounding property owners, notify them that the application is coming through, and hold this meeting. And the purpose of the community meeting is twofold. It is an information session for county staff and the applicant to share information with the surrounding community of what the proposed development is, and to receive feedback ahead of the public hearing from the community of any concerns of impacts to your lives on the ground from the proposed development. So the way today is going to work, first I'm going to go over a couple very generic slides identifying some general planning concepts, what the request is, and identifying the review procedure or review and approval procedure for this type of application. After that, we're going to hand things over to the applicant team. They're going to provide a few words, letting you know a little more in detail of what they are proposing to construct on the site. And then from there, we're going to have a question and answer session. The number of folks here, I think what I'm going to have you do is, when we get to the question and answer session, I'm going to have you all line up single file, starting roughly here, just to keep everything orderly. Since we've only got the one mic, we'll share information going back. All right, with that, I'm going to stop rambling and start with some introductions. So, also from the planning division, I have Rebecca Bowden. That's her name and contact information on the community meeting notice. If you have follow-up questions that you would like answered, you can reach out to her via phone, email, fax. Nope, we've taken the fax off. I think we finally got rid of that machine. Phone or email are preferred. For any questions. Oh, my name, in case you all missed it, Nick Daumuller with the Orange County Planning Division. All right, other county staff, I think Rebecca and I are the only ones at the staff level, but we do have your District 1 Commissioner, Nicole Wilson, here.
All right, Nicole.
Thank you. I swear I didn't pay them, but I think I was promised a cocktail. No, I just want to thank you. I know it's a rainy, cold evening, and this is probably the last place you want to be over the dinner hour. But this application, as it came through, the applicant was not required to have a community meeting. But for those of you all who have followed the way that I've really asked anybody that comes through the process, it's important to me, and I feel like it's important to my community, to be able to hear about any changes that are coming and to find out what's going on next door. If there's an opportunity to give feedback, I ask the applicant to please listen to that. The rules for me are pretty straightforward, though. Everybody has to be super respectful because we are all neighbors at the end of the day. The other rule is that if you do not have my newsletter coming to your email inbox, that you go to NicoleWilson.org and sign up for that newsletter. Because oftentimes when these mailers go out, they go out to a very distinct circle, a mailing circle. But one of the things that we do from my office is we do an email newsletter about the cases that are coming in front of the board as they're coming in front of the board. So if you ever want to come down and give public comment, if you want to email us, I often list the project by name, whoever the contact is from the applicant team, and people from our planning or zoning divisions. So, that is just a wealth of information. A lot of people are like, oh, your newsletter is really dry. And I'm like, it is until it's something you are interested in. And then it's very interesting. So, and if there's ever a question, don't hesitate to reach out. I know that the processes are complex and that a lot of times they're brilliant. Our planning folks are brilliant, but they speak in acronyms. And so we joke about breaking down the ABCs of the BCC. What are those acronyms, right? So, if there's ever a question, just reach out and we can try to make sure that we're making the process a little more clear. We're a facilitator of that, and we try really hard to help communicate within our division. So thank you so much for your time and for being here. And like I said, please stay in touch.
Thank you. Yes, just building on that a little bit, two other things about tonight. One, No decisions are being made at the community meeting tonight. This is solely an information session. I will explain to you at the end of my very short presentation here when the decisions will be made. Also, if there are any questions that we are not able to answer as staff, or that you come up with later, laying in bed and realize, that was a good question, I probably should have asked that. Again, you've got our contact information. I'll have my cards as well. If you want to reach out to Rebecca and myself, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. All right, with that, we are here to talk about, as I mentioned, the subject property. Roughly 5.52 gross acres. That does include a portion of the property that is submerged as part of the lake. Oh, identified right here. We've got our parcel ID located east of 535, west of the Lake Bryan in District 1. This property is zoned plain development. I'm going to explain what that is in a moment. And they are requesting to change the entitlements of that plain development district. I'm also going to explain that in a moment. But what it boils down to is right now, they could build on this property, if they would like, 280 hotel rooms. So one hotel with 280 rooms. They could go out, start pulling site plans and permits. They're allowed to do that. Property owners decided that they no longer want to pursue that use. They want to change the allowable use. And what they want to change it to is 298 multifamily dwelling units. Multifamily is somewhat of an industry term. It means multiple families living on one lot. Think apartment complex. That is a multifamily use. They are also asking one waiver from code as part of the process of amending their zoning. They are able to ask for alternative development standards. Right now, if they were a hotel, they would be able to build quite a tall building. However, if they were to build an apartment building, code requires that to be much shorter. They are asking for an alternative development standard to be able to build their hotel, if approved, to a maximum of 125 feet and 11 stories. That's not combined, that's both of those things. All right, so next slide. Here is a very zoomed out aerial. You all are probably familiar with the location. We're going to have a much more zoomed in one here in a moment. But it is this undeveloped piece of property identified on the map here. And you notice. What this map is the county's future land use map. And every property, what that means is every property in the county has a future land use designation and a zoning designation. The future land use, which is this map, sets the general type of development and how much of that development. Some districts allow for single-family subdivisions with a maximum of so many homes per acre. Some allow for retail commercial development with so much square footage per acre. This property is ACMU. What that stands for is Activity Center Mixed Use, indicating that it is within the iDrive Activity Center. This is one of the county's mixed-use land use designations, which allow both residential and commercial uses. So, moving on to the not so wide range of colors zoning map. As I mentioned, this property is zoned PD, which is a planned development district. What that means, there are two different types of zoning districts. There are your standard conventional districts, your R1, A2, they've all got combinations of letters and numbers for whatever reason. They allow very specific sets of uses, what you can build in the property, and development standards, how you can build them. So it will identify you can do X, Y, and Z use, and you can build it so high and so close to the property and with so much stormwater and this type of landscaping, etc. What a planned development is a negotiated zoning district, and that means at some point in time, property owner came in, they negotiated with the county, very specific set of entitlements. That's that word I used earlier. Entitlements are what you can build on the property. So it's very specifically laid out. X number of residential units, X number of hotel rooms, X square feet of retail, commercial, industrial, etc. And development standards, again, how those uses can be built. As I mentioned, this property is part of a larger PD, which includes the condo hotel that's adjacent to it and a retail building there on the street. The PD has a mixture of uses that are entitlements and standards, that are allowed at different portions of the area. As you're likely familiar from the zoomed in aerial, which is going to pop up in right here. All right, northern half of the property, very much developed. Those structures are there. I'm assuming you're all aware of that. That was constructed as a condo hotel under the retail hotel entitlements in the PD. This area in the south was proposed to be phase 2 of that hotel. That's the area that has those remaining entitlements for 280 hotel rooms. They want to convert that area and construct the multifamily development. All right, really fast, if we can go to, well, that's not the most contrast helpful picture. We do have printouts if you'd like to look at them. Plan development zoning district comes with what's called a land use plan. Land use plan is the actual document that shows the boundary, the access points, includes all of the entitlements, the development standards, and conditions of approval that talk about how the whole thing is going to work. And here is the land use plan here. On the next slide. All right, so as the commissioner mentioned, a community meeting was not anticipated for this request. So it had gone through the standard review process, whereby an application submitted to the county. It's reviewed by what's called the county's technical review group. It's experts from 18 different county divisions: planning, zoning, transportation, landscape, stormwater, etc. Once the application has met all of the technical requirements, it's forwarded on to the Development Review Committee, which is a committee made up of senior staff who make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and then it's scheduled for a public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners to make the final decision to approve or deny or approve with certain limitations or restrictions or conditions. This was originally heard at the Board of County Commissioners meeting in November. And a couple of you came out with some unanswered questions at that meeting. In response to those unanswered questions, we've decided to postpone the decision from that meeting, so no decision was made in November, to hold this community meeting, and the request was continued to the January 28th Board of County Commissioners hearing. It will be heard again at that time. Those take place at the Orange County Administration Building, 201 South Roslyn Avenue, downtown Orlando. It will be a formal public hearing. Staff will present the request. It will be open for public comment. You will all have an opportunity to come and provide comment at the hearing, and then the mayor and board of commissioners will ultimately make a vote and decide whether, again, to approve, deny, or approve with restrictions, limitations, conditions. Opportunities for public comment. As I mentioned, you've got tonight. You've got reaching out to Rebecca or myself in between now and the hearing. You've got showing up to the hearing, or you could reach out to the board themselves. We got to work on our timing. All right, contact information here. We can also share this information with you because we are going to go to another slide here in a moment. So with that, before we get to the formal question and answer session, do you want to give the applicant an opportunity to provide any clarification, information, details?
Thank you, Nick. You did an excellent job. And for the record, McGregor Love. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Becky Wilson is the primary land use attorney. I work with Becky at the Lowndes Law Firm. But again, I want to reiterate, Nick did a fantastic job. He ran you through future land use, zoning, and plan development. But I just want to underscore kind of where we are in the process. We are asking for it's referred to as a CDR, which is an acronym for Change Determination Request. We're asking that the land use plan, the bubble plan, be amended to allow a different use. In this case, it's multifamily. The next phase, if this change determination is approved, is called the development plan phase. And that's really the engineered plans where we have to meet concurrency, we have to meet the county standards in terms of design, but this is certainly your opportunity as the public to come out and comment, and that is what we're here for tonight. So thank you for coming out. Just a few clarifications. Nick did mention this. There is a waiver in the change determination request application to allow an 11-story building. I believe that hotels, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, can go up to 14 stories. They would not, if this were a hotel, you would not need a waiver for an 11-story building. So we're not asking for a building taller than we could otherwise build right now. We're just asking for a building taller than multifamily could have right now without a waiver. And just in terms of impact on the public facilities that are in the surrounding area, and by that, I'll clarify, that's kind of a term of art under state statute for roadways, schools, et cetera, that are impacted by a proposed development. On transportation, this proposal actually is a substantial reduction in the amount of what they call, this is another term of art, trips, average daily trips that go to and from the property over what the 280 hotel units would be. There was a note and a comment at the commission meeting that there was a school determination that there's not available capacity, and we have that determination. There's not available elementary school capacity. And as a matter of state statute, we're not able to pull building permits and get certificates of occupancy unless we meet school concurrency. But that is, this stage is where these issues are noted. They're flagged for the public, they're flagged for the applicant. But the time where state statute says you must have that in place is the next phase, it's the development plan phase. And so that is the obligation of the applicant for all public facilities. I'm going to introduce Ryan Solo, who's the applicant's in-house counsel, and he'll have some more information for you. Ryan.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm the president of development and also the head attorney for Silver Hills. I think it would be helpful for everybody to get a little bit of background on us. We're a multifamily developer. We're active all throughout the state of Florida. We have a project up by Universal Studios. It's about 320 units with a second phase for another 150. We have a project up in Daytona. We're active in Fort Myers. We also have projects up and down the East Coast and the Charlotte Metro. We're active in Richmond, Virginia, and also in the Midwest as well. Our primary focus is we build Class A multifamily projects. We are not merchant builders. So one of the things that we hear when you talk about multifamily developers is we're kind of broken down into two different types. There's merchant builders who essentially build multifamily buildings to sell it to the next guy to then move on. We are what's called a long-term holder. So essentially what we do is we build our projects and we are planning on owning and operating and maintaining our projects for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And the reason why that should matter is that we care how much, we basically put our hearts and souls into each one of our projects, and we care very much about how we integrate with the community. We really want to be good neighbors. We're here to really work collaboratively and proactively with the community to address any issues, and frankly, in all the areas that we're in, I'd like to say we've made a positive impact with our projects, and frankly, we're excited about this particular project here. We think that there's a very serious housing need in this area. We think that we can fill it with this particular project, and I think from our perspective, we're looking at this and saying, okay, how can we integrate well? How can we add value to both the Blue Heron Condo Association, the neighborhood association area, and really create a more active, vibrant community that I think would hopefully work well with everyone. So that's us in a nutshell. We're still working through the site planning process, with a couple of points to note. We have had conversations with the Blue Heron Condo Association's attorneys, who I believe one of them is present tonight. And we did get some feedback from them, and based on that, just to kind of give you a little sense of some of the things that we are doing to maybe hopefully answer some of the questions that you may have in advance, is I do know that there was some concern initially that we would be sharing in some of the common area and the community facilities of the Blue Heron Condo Association. We are not planning on doing that. We are planning on building our own pools, our own fitness center, our own amenities, so that our intent would be essentially to act as more or less a standalone project that isn't sharing in those facilities. We've been working very hard on the design of our project, and one of the things that we are very focused on is making sure that the main entrance of our building will be generally located around this area. We're still working through the site plan process. The idea would be essentially that the main entrance would come in through the south and then through here, What we are going to have this access open, it would be for secondary access. So that should hopefully answer some of the questions to the extent that, you know, and that's in a nutshell kind of where we are, so.
Would you be taking over the whole 3 acres that's there?
Hang on, we're gonna go to a question and answer.
All right,
for
folks.
a second.
Yep.
I think it's important, so one of the things I wanna make,
I just want to point out for, if anyone hasn't been to one of my meetings, my staff is here. I've got Susie right there, Alexis right over here, and Drew, who is the guy with the camera. And the planning department, they do a great job, but my district office is the one that tries really hard to record or to get some of this stuff, so that if somebody isn't here, we can share those question and answer. So one of the reasons why I'd like to kind of make sure we're using Nick's idea of an orderly question and answer and giving everyone an opportunity is so if anybody else has that same question, we've got it on tape and we can make sure to share that and we don't have to ask the same questions again and again and again and again. So if that's okay, let's go ahead and do Nick's idea of line up right here. And Drew, you're getting all this right? Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, folks, questions, comments, concerns?
Actually, I think we're gonna get our attorney.
Sure.
He may cover all of
Her
it.
questions are probably bad.
He may
And if
cover all
anyone wants to speak next, don't be shy, you know, feel free to come up.
Just something to reference. Commissioner Wilson, just reference materials.
oh, thanks, Tom. All right, so I'm asking a question by proxy
Yep.
here.
All right, we've got a question from the back by proxy.
Are these short-term or long-term rentals? Would they be considered vacation rentals? Short-term or long-term?
I can answer that question. The proposed use is residential. Under the county's codes, a residential use cannot be rented for a period of shorter than 6 months. So, short-term rental, which is less than 6 months, currently permitted on the property. If their request is approved, would not be permitted. Sure.
Yeah.
Up on it.
Hi, everybody. Jay Carroll. I am the attorney for the Blue Heron Association with the Becker Law Firm. This will take the form of a few questions, I guess, because I've had the opportunity to meet with the board, and they've brought many of the concerns that owners have communicated to them to me. And so my hope is that a lot of your concerns can be addressed through a dialogue here between council and between the commissioner's staff and us. I think one of the main issues here, as McGregor mentioned, the height waiver is kind of getting misconstrued as an issue, and there's really nothing there. Currently, the property is approved to go higher than it is. The only reason they need to seek a height waiver requirement is because they're changing the use. So right now, they could go build a hotel that would be higher than what's being sought. It's not a big deal. So I don't want to waste time on the height issue, really. We don't think that's an issue. The main issue is cross-access between the two parcels and the compatibility of this proposed new use as opposed to what was originally thought to be developed here. So as you all know, when you bought into the Blue Heron, you thought there were going to be 4 towers, there were going to be joint amenities, many hundreds more units contributing towards the maintenance of those amenities. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening, right? The developer is now seeking to do multifamily on the lower parcel. And so the way that this has been developed, if you look at the map up here, and McGregor, that's kind of in what I handed you on page 2, and Commissioner Wilson as well, you'll notice there's an orange bar right at this location. I promise there's a question in here. Right there, there's a gate that you all know restricts access to the resort. That was put in quite a while back as a result of ongoing safety concerns. There were break-ins, there were lots of issues, and so your property is gated right now. It would make sense if these 2 future spots were developed with additional Blue Heron towers for them to have access through those gates, because you're all part of the same condo development, you're all paying towards the same maintenance of the same common facilities. That's not what's being proposed anymore. Now, It's going to be a standalone multifamily project, and that's great. There's room for multifamily in the world, but it's how does it fit at this location if it's going to fit? And so right now, the way the system works at Blue Heron is if you have access through that gate, you have access to the buildings. And if you have access to the buildings, you have access to the amenities. We appreciate the developer noting that they're not going to seek to access your amenities. That's great. And I think we've gotten a concession that they'll commit to put that as a formal condition of development, that they'll build their own amenities, they won't seek access to rely on yours. But the issue is that cross-access there. To the extent, because we know the county loves cross-access between parcels, mainly for emergency services purposes, right? If there's a fire, if there's an emergency, you want to be able to get where you need to be in order to address that. To the extent that there is an access point here between what's going to be hundreds of apartments, or what, 180? Tell me. 280 apartment units and your existing condos, I mean, we can have access there that's limited solely to emergency vehicles. If it's anybody and everybody who lives here can come through here, but they're not paying to maintain the roads that they're driving on, there's no current thought in place or way to practically get them through that gate and to the property without also granting them free reign to your property. I think part of the issue here is, you know, there wasn't a attempt, and it's not anything wrong on the developer's end, right? There just wasn't coordination ahead of time. And so I understand at this point, it's frustrating from the developer's end because it's like, man, we've already gotten through the process. We're looking at the finish line, and now the association's hitting us with all this. Well, we could have talked about all this on the front end had we known. And I'm glad that we're having these conversations now because it's a matter of the uses being compatible with regard to cross-access. The other issue that we want to at least discuss in part is the drainage issue. So right now, as you know, there's deeded easements in place for drainage, and this is dry retention on this parcel right here. So the original development plan thought that we were going to have 2 more towers here. When those were built, the developer was going to go in and add drainage for the whole property, and it was all going to make sense. And it also was going to be split as community property among all the owners in all 4 towers. Well, now, the Blue Heron is potentially going to be facing drainage issues, or if we retrofit it and go in with drainage to accommodate this new development, the Blue Heron's going to be burdened by an excessive cost for drainage. There have been ongoing discussions between council about, you know, who's going to bear that cost, and we appreciate they've made a good faith offer to bear, I think, the bulk of that cost, but there are still unresolved issues with regard to cross-access, with regard to some of these issues inherent in inviting multifamily. And so if we're going to have the main entrance here, my question is, if we're going to have the main entrance on that south side of the property, are we still tied to cross-access? And that's kind of putting y'all on the spot, but now knowing a little bit more about the reason behind the association taking issue with it, is it a possibility that we can, at the very least, restrict cross-access between the parcels to emergency vehicles only? And maybe that makes more sense from a development perspective. I'll give you guys, yeah, that was a lot.
Thanks, Jake. And Ryan, you may have some more information about this. I do think that as it relates to cross-access and drainage, you know, Jake is correct. There have been conversations ongoing between, council regarding how those issues will be resolved. And honestly, I think that's the forum for these conversations to move forward. Because these are private issues. What the county is concerned with from a compatibility standpoint is this compatible from a planning perspective? And the activity center mixed use designation was always intended to be a mixed use designation. And, you know, I think this area in particular has less residential than was probably anticipated from a planning perspective. Now, that doesn't answer any of Jake's questions. I'm just trying to let you know that these private issues are perfectly legitimate issues to be concerned with. I'm not saying that they're not legitimate issues. They're just, they require a private resolution that's outside the purview of what the county even has the authority to weigh in on. Brian, if you want to address this, I'll let you go.
Yeah, so without giving, so I've been practicing, in addition to being on the development side prior to this, I spent almost a decade at 3 major law firms drafting and negotiating various forms of complicated easements and joint venture agreements and loan documents and every different type of real estate document you could possibly imagine. So the relationship between the two parties, and I'll just leave it at that, is governed by a fairly complex web of documentation that's already been previously agreed upon in advance, been recorded against properties. At this point, to kind of echo McGregor's sentiment, we really think that these issues are better left addressed vis-a-vis the private conversations that we've been having, and I think have been relatively productive and cordial. And the last thing that I want to do is try to explain something that's fairly complicated, misspeak, and then wind up creating more confusion. So.
Wait, why are we here then?
Let's keep it respectful. Just a quick follow-up on that. You want to talk about the drainage real quick? We can talk drainage. Yes, you have more information.
Do you want to follow up and then talk drainage, or talk drainage and follow up?
No problem. It's part of the
All
development.
right, sir. Going on. There was a comment raised regarding the drainage. Member of the applicant team is going to speak to that, and then we'll continue on with questions.
I'll be real quick because I know there's other things you want to talk about. My name is Robert Pamish. I'm a civil engineer. I've been involved with this project since 2004, I believe, since Freddie Shins bought the property. I was involved with the rezoning, with all the permits, with another rezoning, with more land being added, getting all the permits for what's built, planning for the master plan, including the drainage, including the docks. So I have a lot of background with the project. If you all want me to talk to you after the fact, I'll be glad to answer your questions. With the drainage, it was very simple. We were supposed to have a retention vault under the 4th tower right here. And it was going to be underground, below a building. County, the Water Management District, everybody approved it. When we built phase 1, which is the first 2 towers, we quickly realized that there's no reason to build a vault. So we built the exact same pond, but as an open pond, knowing that it was an interim pond and that it would be pushed under the future tower as a underground, below the building system. And that's exactly what's going to happen now, in exact accordance with the plans from day 1 and all the permits that we've received. The pond will end up under the building, just as planned and just as designed. As you know, all the stormwater pipes are in, all the water lines are in, all the sewer lines are in, even for towers 3 and 4. So all the infrastructure was put in, but the towers didn't get built, nor did the pond. It's just an open pond which will be enclosed under the building just as originally planned. It just might look a little longer this way, a little wider this way to fit the proposed building. So that's all I wanted to tell you about the drainage. Be glad to answer your questions later.
Just a quick follow-up.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
I took what Ryan just said as an insult, personally. I mean, he's saying that he has all this information to go ahead and talk to all of us about, but that we won't understand it. And so he wants to talk to our counsel in private. So I'm saying, why are we here? I mean, if you think that you need to discuss this in private, why are we having this public forum? And again, speaking beyond that point, when we're looking at the way this is all designed out, and in previous conversations you had that I've watched on video, you talked about the fact that most of these units are going to be 1-bedroom units. I have no objection, and I don't think anybody else does, of you building something here. Our objection is you're calling them a multifamily, but yet in the previous conversations you said how many percentage are going to be 1-bedroom?
We're still working through the final layout, but usually our typical project is 60-70%.
Okay, well, I don't know how many families you're going to fit in a 1-bedroom unit, but nevertheless, allowing access through here for construction, allowing access through here for maybe school buses every day, is really gonna put a problem on the resort feel of this property. And again, I have no objections of this being built. But this is separate from this in the same way that the apartments up here are separate from this. These people don't have access to our property. And I know darn well that with a traffic light out here, most of your people are gonna go through that traffic light rather than going down through wherever we're at down here. Oh, the traffic light is, yeah, up here. And rather than going through this way. And that's, I think, what everybody's concern is today.
Yes.
Am I right?
I'm going to let you clarify, but just a point of clarification for the audience. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to process, these types of things are not just thumbs up, thumbs down. As I mentioned, things can be approved with or without conditions, restrictions, etc. As the plan currently stands, there is a condition as part of the requested zoning requiring cross-access between the two uses. That is certainly something that can be discussed and determined by the board if that's appropriate or not. Can't answer that question right now, but those are the types of things that gathering community input is very valuable for starting these types of conversations.
I'll just add one quick thing. And it makes it, just to the cross-access, I'm Art Nickel, I'm the current president of the HOA. And one thing that's never kind of been discussed is if we did have the emergency cross-access, you could still have 2 points of access here because there is a fairly wide access road that again would be very suitable for this property here, in addition to the main access road. So there could be 2 very easy access points to this property that do not affect ours. And as Jake said, a gated emergency only cross-access I think would be acceptable to most people. But making this a giant U that people use freely, that hundreds of cement trucks, steel trucks, school buses after development, end up using as a giant U, does present a significant problem and cost. Like one thing that hasn't been brought up is we have this administration building that controls the gates. This building we brought off our developer at a very significant cost. That cost us literally $25,000 a month. So if there is any expectation that this other development next door somehow would at some point be allowed, there is significant cost in sharing that access. So I'll let Jake continue on, but just wanted to mention that additional, nobody's really even mentioned or thought of the main access point and this huge direct access to this property that could be developed.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody bringing their questions. Go ahead.
Okay, the way I look at it, on all the documents that you guys got, with the easement to access for Tower 3 and 4, that was all on the original. Now, Freddie's selling that, and that was supposed to be for Tower 3 and Tower 4, but now Freddie's selling that out, and y'all got y'all's project going, fine and dandy. But by selling that out and eliminating the Blue Heron's 3 and 4 tower, to me, you've lost all that.
Yeah, it's a separate entity.
It's a total separate entity. You got your access points enter and out. Just like Art said, there's a gate here already, and then there's another one right in here. And plus this retention pond catches all the water from the shopping center too, correct? And we already have a retention pond that's working. We shouldn't have to pay for anything else. We've already paid for it. We've been paying for it for 20 years by maintaining it. We have to mow it and clean it and spray it. We do that all the time, every year, every week, every time they come and mow. It works. It's proven itself. We've had multiple hurricanes, and we've never been flooded. Now, yes, very good job. Very good job. Now, this is what I'm worried about, okay? If you start messing with this and everything, and you're building, and all of a sudden we get this massive storm, and it's not working, and that lake overflows and gets into the bottom of the two towers, you got the same problem that happened in Miami.
Let's talk a little more. You mind if I?
So I just feel like that, you know, if this is being sold out, it needs to be 100% separated from the blue heron. Y'all do y'all's project, we do ours.
Thank you, sir. And just to clarify, I don't mean to say that you came out here tonight to get no answers, because I've heard some questions that really are what the county wants to weigh in on. Questions about cross-access, questions about, you know, will you be taking a school bus in past my, my existing building? Those are legitimate questions. Questions about, well, all the questions are legitimate. Those are questions that the county will want to weigh in on in approving, conditioning this land use plan, because they're concerned about compatibility from a use standpoint. Now, there are other questions, though, that have been related to the rights and obligations of the parties under this community property agreement. The county cannot weigh in on how we resolve this agreement, but that's happening. It's happening between counsel for the applicant and between counsel for the HOA, and you should be concerned with how that's done and what your rights are after that happens. It's just not part of this process. So I encourage you to continue to be involved in that in connection with Jake and your counsel. But I just wanted to say that as a clarification on what the difference between what the county can weigh in on and what they really should not and can't weigh in on. All of them are legitimate concerns, though, and I mean that, but I just wanted to kind of draw the line about why we're here tonight. So I'll let you.
And at risk, this is already starting to take on a Lincoln Douglas format, which is not at all appropriate. And I'm not here to litigate the case against the developer's rights and the community property agreement. I think part of the issue, and when it comes to cross-access, because that's what most people are concerned about, it's being worked in to the approval as, I believe, condition 19. Condition 19 is the one that mandates that cross-access between the parcels. And the problem is, if the county does proceed to ratify the proposed development with condition 19, that's akin to rubber stamping the community property agreement and saying it means X, when in fact, the community property agreement only contemplates these properties being developed as temporary housing. That's 6 months or less. We know for a fact that's not going to be the case. And so, and we'll take it to BCC if we have to. We'll continue the conversations that are going on. I think there's a reasonable solution here with limiting cross-access, at least for emergency purposes, so that you guys can keep the community that you have and the gated safety that you have, and they can continue to do what they're going to do, right? We want to keep the temperature down. McGregor's a good guy. Ryan's a good guy. They're not trying to, kill the rainforest here. They're just trying to build some houses. But it's very important for y'all. This is a big investment in your homes. For some of you, it's an investment. For some of you, it's your primary residence, right? Depending. And so I understand the emotions behind all this, but that's the main issue. That condition 19, if passed as part of the development, would ratify a certain meaning for the community property agreement that we don't believe is supported by the language there. And so we'll go back and forth, guys. We'll figure it out one way or another. But to the extent that that does constitute the county weighing in and mandating that, it does interfere with the private rights of the parties. And so that's the question for you all to, I think, be concerned about. And I know you have questions yourself. So it's not just an opportunity for me to talk. It's an opportunity for you to talk. It's a community meeting. It's not a Jake meeting. Those are terrible.
I don't know, I kind of enjoyed it. All right, anyone, additional questions, comments, things that have not been covered, things you want to get off your chest tonight? Sorry, I don't want to go too far with this. I'm very concerned about tripping with this cord.
Well, I'm not used to using microphone, so bear with me. Most of my questions have been addressed. I was going to make a statement. But most of my questions have been addressed. But two things I'd like to point out that nobody's discussing. One, in the Blue Heron, we have very narrow roads. In fact, when a larger truck comes, and everybody will validate me on this, there will be a number of gyrations that these poor trucks have to do in order to move around our parking lot. And if it's full, good luck. Number of times you see them clipping the curbs, occasionally cursing. And the road, the little Blue Heron Beach Resort Road, prior to the gates, is extremely narrow. Trucks cannot deliver to the mall in front of it without standing on the, I believe I've got the right spot, on the side here. That's the only way trucks can deliver. They cannot manage to get in there. They cannot manage to get in there, especially because this area in through here services as a drive-through for the Starbucks. Everything is extremely narrow. As the daughter of a small-time builder myself, I've seen what will probably really create a problem with construction vehicles. We all know some of them are a little wider. Tractor trailer here, construction vehicle trying to get past, ain't gonna happen. The county is going to create a bigger problem for themselves. So with all this narrow roadway, all this attempts to turn around, and yes, when we're full, we as owners very often will park behind the Hawaiian Rumble because of overflow. There aren't enough vehicle spots for the vehicles to begin with at the Blue Heron. If people are trying to, temporary problem, but if people are trying to be workers for the new construction, we know that they'll be trying to park in our parking lot. We're asking for a big problem here, so we need some big answers. That road is too narrow to support construction vehicles and tractor trailers trying to deliver their products to that little mall.
Plus the circle with the fountain.
Oh, yes. Sorry. We have a lovely fountain, as you know, at the Blue Heron. Recently, it's been hit a number of times over the years, but recently, once again, a larger truck smacked right into it. It's too narrow to begin with.
All right, we got enough time for a couple more tonight?
Another concern to seriously consider is that the Blue Heron is a beach resort. You're going to be building homes for families. If you guys are coming through our main road, it's going to affect every owner's capability to rent their property to people who are coming in to vacation at our beach resort. And it's going to really diminish our possible income. And that's something that really disturbs me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dan Mullen. I'm actually the general manager of the hotel, so I'm the one that's going to have to deal with this. So one thing I don't think you guys understand, and I invite you guys to come to our resort and take a peek, especially between the hours of 8 and noon, when we have checkouts, and we have our mail delivered, and we have our UPS truck, and we have our Amazon trucks throughout the day. And they all park in the exact same spot, right there. They're going to be there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30. How long are they going to wait before your guys start blowing the horn. How long are they gonna wait until they start backing up, ruining our stuff, breaking everything that they can because they have a job to do? And that's to deliver whatever product or material that needs delivered. And that's all they're gonna care about. And in the meantime, once he finally gets free and the US mail truck goes around the corner, now he's hightailing it through here. At any one time, I have 3 to 4 people walking from Tower 1 over here to drop off their keys because they're checking out. And I probably have 30 to 40 people, cleaners, maintenance people, coming across here, walking all day long with their kids on their way to Disney, on their way to iDrive. And this is all they do all day long, is they walk back and forth across this road. And I'm just wondering how that's gonna help us rent units, how it's gonna help raise money for the county with the taxes that they pay on the rental income when all of their rentals dry up, because what drives our hotel is ratings. And if we get a couple of bad ratings for noise, we get a couple of bad ratings because we got some hothead drivers blowing their horns or acting like idiots on our property, I'll trespass them. I'll just trespass them. And they'll never be allowed on the property again. So there's ways of handling some of this stuff in more creative ways. I just want you to know that you're not going to be able to get through here with any of your trucks in a meaningful way of any kind. Not to mention you're going to be scaring all the old people and all the little kids with their Mickey hats on, just trying to get to the parking lot, to their cars, so they can go to Disney.
All right, we got time for one more, and then we are butting up against our end time here, so, sir.
Okay, thank you. I was just gonna add, in addition to all of that, you've got Uber drivers coming out here, and guess where they're parking? They're parking here, or they're backing up here. The trash truck comes around here and completely blocks traffic to Tower 2.
45 minutes he's there unloading our dumpsters.
And you can't get in, you can't get through here, so you've gotta go up here and through the Tower 1 to get to Tower 2. And that means you're blocked from both ways going through here. And there was one other thing I was gonna say. I'm sure it'll come to me after I put the microphone down. But yeah, we've had trouble with, you know, there's a drive-through Starbucks. So you got a whole line of cars lined up here, waiting to turn left and go around this way, because the entrance to the drive-through is around this way. So you've got a line of cars here, and you're going to have, your dump trucks and your semis and your flatbed trucks waiting out here in traffic, waiting to turn in here. It's just not happening.
All right, you have a chance to speak, so we'll just give some warning.